Chris Huriwai and Samah Seger are activists based in Te Whanganui Atara, Wellington, the capital of Aotearoa, New Zealand. Both are coordinators for the grassroots group Wellington Vegan Actions and are organising the country's 2020 Animal Rights March.
In this interview, we talk to them about what goes into setting up such an event and why it's so important that we do so. The episode is full of handy advice and tips for activists all around the world for setting up their own events. If you enjoy this content, smash that like button. If you've learned something, leave a comment below, or if you've been inspired by this. And please share it to get this activist work out there to everybody else. We hope you enjoy this as much as we did.
Chris and Samah, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you so much for having us.
We are really looking forward to helping get people to follow your march and what you're doing. We've got a week to go, isn't it? Saturday, November 28th?
Yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah, that's
It's coming up soon. So thank you so much for helping us promote it. Yeah, really appreciate it. We're excited. It's going to be an awesome event. And yeah, hopefully we get all of the animal rights activists and advocates in New Zealand to come along. And yeah, looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely do our best to put the word out there, encourage everybody along. Now, before we get started properly about the march, there's just one thing that I've been wondering. Here at Vegan FTA, we've got followers from all over the world, and we see them posting all the time about how great and kind a nation New Zealand is because we recognise all our animals as sentient beings. What would you guys' response to that be?
Oh, that's a great question. I think people get that impression because we have the Animal Welfare Act and it recognises animal sentience, but actually it's a facade and it creates this illusion that we care about our animals. But then when you read the act closely, there's actually this whole framework which exempts the majority of animals from protections of the act, especially farmed animals, animals that are tested on, and animals considered as pests basically don't get the protections of the act. And I think that's something a lot of people around the world don't know.
Yeah.
It's in the detail, like most things. So it looks great on the surface, but when you dig deeper, like most things coming from industry, you'll find loopholes, and that's exactly what they've done to enable them to continue exploiting animals for their own financial gain.
Yeah. Well, if it wasn't for, if it was truly sentient and we treated them like such, we wouldn't have the need for events like this either. But, you know, obviously due to the current global situation, the official Animal Rights March in, well, many countries this year hasn't been able to take place. And what was it that made you guys take up the banner and try and organise something independently?
Well, we're in a unique situation of being able to go out and hit the streets. We're very lucky that we've had a good response to COVID-19. And yeah, because it was hard to do activism during that period of lockdown. And so once things started opening up again, it was like, okay, let's get back into it. Let's get the momentum going again.
Yeah, because, you know, we have the ability, therefore we essentially have the obligation. You know, everyone else is missing out on being able to maintain this annual Animal Rights March, and because we're able to, we just thought someone's got to do it.
Yeah, and we have had it 2 years in a row. Kind of feels like something that we should continue.
Good on you. We need more people around the world, cracking out if they can.
Definitely. And that's, you know, our work at Vegan FTA, it's all about inspiration and inspiring others to realise what they can do, which is why, you know, we so wanted to get you on here and talk about your experience of setting up this awesome event. What do you think the importance is of having a large-scale march like this one? What do you hope to achieve the effects of?
Well, like all protests and marches, it's about providing, I guess, an alternative to the dominant discourse, the common dominant narrative, the propaganda that industries subject us to is, you know, it's a daily thing. It's a constant thing. So we feel it's our obligation to get out there and provide, you know, the opposite side of the coin that industry doesn't show the public. And yeah, it's just about creating that alternative narrative to kind of spark people's imagination of, a different kind of reality that we could potentially live in if we started to expand our perspectives.
Yeah, in a way, it's a disruption to social norms, and giving people a way to imagine a different way of looking at animals, a different way of relating to animals. And then the other side of it is, of course, community building. It's really important because it can be quite lonely as well, you know, when you see this glaring injustice and the world doesn't seem to see it. It's really important to connect with others who feel the same way as you, and to empower each other. And also, because we're having speeches from a lot of amazing activists, that's really inspirational to touch base on what's happened over the last year, the wins that we've had, the things that have worked, things that haven't worked. Just basically inspire each other.
Yeah, not only is it, we're providing that alternative narrative, it is to celebrate the animal rights movement in Aotearoa, New Zealand, to remind ourselves of, like Samah said, the wins that we have had, to acknowledge the activists that are here in Aotearoa and the great work that they're doing, and to try and encourage them and everybody else that we need to keep it up.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
We know through Vegan FTA, we've shared some previous speeches from the Animal Rights March, and they've been so well received around the world, and people being able to be inspired overseas. But especially with the community aspect, as you brought up, Samah, is we've had many of our speakers in the activist series saying how you go into these events, whereas what got them connected with so many other people, then that's led to huge things, including the likes of Matthew Glover with $1 Million Vegan, and getting hold of Genesis Butler to speak for them and put forward those things. So yeah, it's absolutely great. So organising an event like this is no small feat. It's a big old task. What are some of the challenges you guys have been facing in trying to get this set up?
Firstly, I think we're just in a really lucky position where we have this amazing team working with us. There's already a great team of activists here in Wellington and around the country, and everyone's just rallied behind this cause and supported us, so we haven't felt alone at all. In terms of challenges,
I think in terms of challenges, it's been having a unified message, because a lot of different, we all come from different walks of life, and we all have different ideas of what is the most effective message. And I guess, the barrier that we've had to overcome is coming to a consensus, I guess. Not that we've had to dilute certain messages, but we have had to think kind of broadly to have a mission statement, a vision that aligns with enough people for us to create an inclusive kind of space for the animal rights movement. Because, there's the abolitionists, there's the welfareists, there's the incrementalists, and what we're all about is trying to build bridges between those different points of view. So yeah, that's probably been the biggest barrier. I don't think that, I wouldn't say infighting has been a barrier or fighting with each other, but really coming to an agreement on a message that we're all really proud to push has probably been the barrier.
And then also, I guess, transforming the energy that people put into having plant-based diets and being interested in veganism in that sort of sense into street activism and into actually showing up and marching on the street.
Yeah, I guess, for a lot of vegans, there is a bit of frustration around consumerist vegans, or, cafe vegans, as I like to call them, getting people who are interested in veganism or a plant-based diet, getting them active, getting them out into the streets, like Samah was saying. There is a big push and a big rise in popularity, and it gets us all thinking, wow, there is this real army of people behind us. But then when push comes to shove with certain things like an animal rights march, there is not as many voices as we thought would be behind us. So kind of getting over that is, another barrier.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. It's good to know. And you're right. I mean, that's, you can be vegan, anybody can be vegan, but I think, everyone who is vegan needs to be active in the vegan movement. So I really hope that this will, help people to see what they can do. And that's what we're all about, isn't it? I can't wait to see what you guys achieve with it all, and I look forward to seeing the coverage and everything. Just we touched on briefly on your speakers, and you've got an amazing lineup, a few of which we've also interviewed for our activist series. Do you want to give a bit of a run through about who you've got appearing?
Yeah, sure. So we tried to cover sort of most of the bases around the movement in Aotearoa. So we have Coke's from the Black Sheep Animal Sanctuary, and they've been doing amazing work in that space. Is something to speak about in terms of what kind of space they're trying to create there. We have Sandra, who's the coordinator for the Animal Save, and has been around for a very long time. Elan Goldberg, who has worked in the academic space, teaching high schoolers and university students about critical thinking and animal rights. Who else we got?
Oh, we got Jessica Strafty again. She's the New Zealand coordinator for Mothers Against Dairy. Courtney Butler, who is...
They used to work in a slaughterhouse and meatworks, and so they have that direct experience of being in that space and how that's transformed their thinking, which I think is a really powerful message. Chris?
Yeah, I'll be speaking kind of MC. I'm kind of going to be like the hype guy. And then we've also got Fran Elizabeth, who's from the Coalition for the Protection of Racehorses, who's been doing a lot of work in New Zealand around the New Zealand racing industry and raising awareness for what animals go through in that industry.
Yeah, and Tara Jackson.
Oh, Tara Jackson, of course, from NZAV.
You just interviewed.
Yeah,
she's
amazing.
Yeah, she is amazing.
Yeah.
So we're really excited to hear from all of our speakers and see what they've been up to and what they can offer us and what we can learn from them.
And just to celebrate their work and inspire everybody else.
That's epic.
Yeah,
I love hearing the sound of the lineup, because gigs have sort of been out the window for most people around the world lately. I'm hearing that lineup, I'm thinking of the post, I'm like, you're getting amped for it, and we really hope there's plenty of footage that comes from it and we can share some of those speeches with our audience overseas too, and get them amped about it as well. And
I love that it's such an opportunity to learn as well. I think when people hear about marches, they think they just literally just walk through the street waving a placard and that's it. I've done my walk, that's it. But it's such an important facet for everybody to learn, vegans and non-vegans as well. You've got such a brilliant broad array of speakers there. It's going to be fantastic.
Absolutely. There's lots of stories about people going to these marches kind of with an open mind and then deciding to become active after that. It does inspire people, I think.
Brilliant. Well, for you, Samah, you've been someone who's relatively new to the sort of activist scene. What has it been like for you getting involved with such a big event like this?
I think what I've found is that people who have been in the movement for a long time have been really quick to support me and just validate me and tell me it doesn't matter that I haven't been in the movement for very long as my intentions are good and willing to do the mahi. So that's been really wonderful, that kind of support from the movement. And just because I feel like, I've been vegan for a while, but I always felt like I needed to study more or learn more or become better or more knowledgeable before entering this space. But I think my takeaway from all of that is actually that learning is an ongoing process, and who better to learn from than people in the movement. There's obviously also small aspect of naivety because I came in here, haven't really done much organizing before, and I just jumped head first and then realized it was a massive project and then obviously had the support from everyone, so it was fine and good and great.
That's been brilliant. And I think it's so good for someone to, when you get that passion and that desire to do something more, to actually act on it and realize that you are supported. I mean, I know a lot of vegans, not just people who've been vegan for a while, but new vegans as well. We see it all the time that once they know, they're really shocked and they're just want to make a big difference and they feel like they can't, because they're only one voice or only one person. So it really goes to show what we can achieve when we work together. It's brilliant. I'm glad you've had so much support.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that actually acting from that space of drive is probably more important than anything else, more important than being the most knowing or the most knowledgeable about something. actually just having that passion, that drive to do something.
Being able to act on your convictions, very powerful thing.
When we spoke recently with Shamiz Kashwala, brilliant Auckland activist here in New Zealand, he spoke a little bit about the sort of idea of how when you go vegan, you know, you're going from that sort of -1 to 0, you know, but then to get to +1, having that action and the activism and stuff like that is what takes you to the sort of the positive scale of things. And yeah, just how important it is to be involved with this stuff.
Yeah,
definitely. I mean, a lot of people say this, is that being vegan is kind of abstaining yourself, you know, taking yourself out of the equation, or, you know, but you kind of do become a bystander or an observer if you don't actually then get involved and start advocating. So yeah, it's good to, you know, for yourself to become a vegan and to pull yourself out of that system. But if we want to start seeing positive change, then we actually have to get back involved in that system and actually start doing our work to advocate for these animals. Otherwise, nothing's going to happen.
And I'll just add one other thing, that when I decided to step into this, you know, it wasn't actually even my idea, but I just wanted to support. I stepped into it with a couple of my friends, and I think that made a huge difference, because they were people I really trusted, and I think trust is really important in that, when doing activism. And so, you know, I went into it with a couple of my friends, and we just backed each other up 100%. So yeah, definitely having those friends who want to do that work with you is quite important.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Right. Everyone get your accountability buddies together and get your friends on board. But previously in New Zealand, the Animal Rights March was only held in Auckland, New Zealand's biggest city. But even for people like myself, when I first emigrated here, I thought it was the capital because it was the biggest, and it's not. Wellington's the capital of New Zealand. Why do you think it's so important to now get this event, you know, shifted down to the heart of New Zealand?
I mean, we're just trying something different, to be quite honest. There were talks previously about doing smaller marches in each city to have a higher net number of participants nationwide, rather than having us all congregate in one city. Previously, the strategy has been to congregate in one city so that we have the highest amount of people in one place. But potentially in the future, you could see smaller marches in different cities all around the country so that everybody can get involved, because we know it's hard, you know, to catch a flight or a bus to the larger cities to participate. So we might try to make it more accessible in the future. But to be quite honest, the switch from Auckland to Wellington is just to switch things up. It's to try something else. It's to give other people an opportunity to participate, and just to always trying new things, always, And
there is a symbolic aspect of ending our march at Parliament and having the speeches at Parliament, presenting our demands, you know, even if it is just a gesture. There's something to be said about the hub of the government being here.
Definitely.
Absolutely, yeah, it's brilliant. And, you know, I'm so glad that you guys have put Wellington on the map. I mean, when the Auckland Animal Rights March took place last year, I think we were in Wellington, actually. We were in the wrong end of the country again. But there are a lot of people, you know, could we do one in Christchurch? Could we do one in Dunedin? And I think there are a lot of people that would have liked to do something, but didn't have that conviction, or again, felt that they were a bit of a lone voice in it. So it's great that you guys show, you know, you can go and do your own thing if you want to, you know, and it's kind of that whole leadership thing. If there's one person, you know, you kind of feel a bit alone, but like Samah said, if there's, you know, you just get one more person or another couple of people on board with you, really on board, and you do something, then the rest will follow, you know. So it's great. Yeah, good on you. And I just love the symbolism as well with finishing at government, because you're starting at the Te Papa Museum, is that right?
Yeah, which is another really symbolic place of Wellington.
Definitely, you get out there in front of a lot of people.
I do wonder, did you guys experience any sort of resistance when you started bringing up the idea, though, of shifting the location of it?
To tell you the truth, the organisers were looking for others to take on board this task, because it is quite a task to run an event like this. So, you know, full respect and appreciation to all the previous organisers of these events, and really hope that more people put their hands up to become organisers in the future. But, you know, like I was saying before, the only kind of pushback has been coming to that kind of unified message, because we are a diverse movement here in New Zealand, Aotearoa. We're not a homogenous animal rights group. And like I said, there has been discussions around potentially moving marches to the smaller cities. And yeah, there will always be healthy, I hope, debates around the best strategic moves to go forward. But yeah, let's keep up with those debates, and let's be kind to each other, and let's try and work together to come together on a unified message so that we can work together as strong as possible as a unified community.
Yeah, and the previous organisers of the march in Auckland have been fully supportive. A lot of them are going to be here, and yeah, provided any materials that can help. And yeah, no, they're happy for it to continue in general.
Oh, that's brilliant. Like,
yeah, definitely.
Because I just thought for some of our other activists in the audience, you know, they may be worried about treading on people's toes, you know, with doing events like this. But it's great to see that you guys have had such a positive reception from it, and yeah, getting it out there to more places.
Definitely. It always makes me think of we interviewed Dr. Michael Clapper a few months back, and I always remember him saying, and I'm pardon my French because I know he wouldn't use this words, but this was how I interpreted. He was saying the best way for the vegan movement to move forward, he said, is to end the bickering. You know, he said we've got to have our together. He didn't say that word, but that was my, you know, I can't remember what he said, but that was what sunk in my brain. We've got to have it together, you know, as a movement, because if we're all fractured, then, you know, if you want people to take you seriously and listen to what you're saying, you need to be, you know, united in that message. So yeah, it's brilliant. It's brilliant that you're bringing everybody together. Sorry, you go.
Just in terms of stepping on toes, it's definitely not us who have put Wellington on the map in terms of animal rights. There's a very strong community of animal rights activists who have been doing a lot of work here in Wellington for a long time. But also, in terms of stepping on others' toes, it can be an issue. And I would just say that if anyone is thinking about starting an event, definitely just put the feelers out there, reach out to the communities and actually talk about the type of actions that are already going on in the area, things that have previously been done, and the type of actions that the local community would like to move towards. You can just go out rogue and do your own thing, but I would definitely recommend, if you can, if there is a community that's already there, communicate with them and find out what everybody wants to do. Otherwise, try and build that community yourself and start something.
Yeah, that's some brilliant advice there, and I'm sure most of our viewers will already be plugged into their local Facebook groups, but if you're not already, search your local area with a vegan group tag on Facebook, and you'll soon find a large community quite often. But for you, Chris, you've been to these events previously and sort of seen the reaction, the response you've had there in Auckland. How do you think Wellington's going to respond to it this year, or what's your hopes for it at least?
Well, Wellington is a lot more of an artistic kind of green city compared to Auckland, but as well, there's some interesting characters in Auckland as well. I mean, New Zealand, Aotearoa is an interesting place in general, quite open-minded, I think, and quite progressive. And so probably not as much pushback here in Aotearoa as there is in other countries. But, you know, it is definitely there. The animal rights message is quite confronting for a lot of people. But like all protests that are against the dominant narrative, yeah, you'll get pushback. And that's totally normal. That's totally all good. We expect that. We should get that. Otherwise, our message probably isn't strong enough, to be quite honest. So yeah, you have to be prepared for that. You have to understand that people come at things with their own perspectives. We don't judge people for the perspectives that they have. You know, we were all educated and encouraged into different paths of life, and you just got to be prepared to come at it with, you know, a staunch but compassionate response.
Definitely. And I think, you know, it's great that you are raising awareness. I read an article about the march earlier this week in which you were saying, you know, about raising awareness of the animal exploitation in New Zealand, which goes back to the very start of our chat, where we were saying about how people outside New Zealand don't realise that there is still a massive amount of animal abuse and exploitation. But also, you know, there is that in New Zealand as well. So many people don't realise what goes on in our own country. So, you know, firstly, thank you for raising awareness of that and with these wonderful speakers that you've got. But, you know, for our viewers out there that are watching from outside New Zealand, what kind of exploitation are you, you know, wanting to highlight that goes on in our country?
Where to begin?
Long list.
I mean, the first thing that I would say is we're just like every other country, you know. Everywhere in the world, we're all exploiting animals, and that's an extension from how we've all been exploiting the environment. And, you know, one of the main things I think that creates this illusion for people is that we do have pasture-based systems for dairy cows and for sheep. But if they were to come to New Zealand and understand the degree of deforestation that's taken place, and that we've filled up virtually every lowland space with paddocks for these animals, and if they realize the intensive nature of it, which has been hidden by our industries and by our government to, you know, benefit our primary industries export sector, then they'll realize it's just a ruse. We're just like everybody else. And we, you know, Aotearoa, New Zealand is a very young country, and so we're not seeing the kind of environmental degradation that you'll see in other countries because we're still fresh. But if we continue on the current path that we're on at the moment, in the same path that other countries have been on for a long time, then yeah, we're going to be just like everybody else. And so at the moment, New Zealand, Aotearoa, we're milking this clean green imagery. But yeah, like I say, and like Samah, it's a facade. And hopefully our propaganda industries in New Zealand, Aotearoa, stop getting away with confusing everybody with this clean green message and tricking everyone into thinking that we're different, because we're not.
Yeah, we have obviously intensive farming. We mass produce animals just like everyone else. It's all very mechanized and industrial. You know, we farm chickens in tiny little cages the size of a A4 sheet of paper. We cut their beaks off. We macerate them alive. We do all the things that are usually found within the industrial farming system. And then obviously we have cruel testing on animals. It's completely unnecessary. We have animals used in entertainment, and we have really cruel methods with which we deal with animals that we consider pests. You know, some of our poisons can take up to 20 days to kill an animal, which is just such a horrific idea that we've been conditioned to think is okay to have, to cause so much suffering to an animal. So yeah, I think another thing that I would really want people to understand is that this current way of dealing with animals in Aotearoa in particular is really new to this land. There were no farming systems or mass production of animals prior to the colonization of Aotearoa. So really, this has only been around for just around 200 years. So there's this idea that, oh no, this land is made for farming. Farming has always been here. This is normal. It's actually really not normal. It's really new. And in that 200 years, you can see how much destruction has been caused and how quickly the numbers of animals subject to these conditions has grown in that short amount of time.
Yeah, it's
very true.
We spoke to Dr. Mike Joy for another episode, and he was just basically explaining about some of these, the way our agricultural system works out here. And basically we have got factory farms all over the country. It's just that they are outdoor factory farms. You know, when we used to live on the road here in New Zealand, we'd be driving for miles up and down the country. And when we first went out, we weren't vegan. And then once we were vegan and we're driving through the country, all you see is the paddocks everywhere. People used to say New Zealand was full of sheep. To be honest, it's only once you get down south you see the sheep anymore. It's just poor dairy cows everywhere you bloody look. And it's well,
the number of sheep has halved in the last 10 years, but the number of dairy cows has tripled. I
tried to explain it to somebody once whilst we were on the drive, and I was saying, you know, like, it's such a shame about what they've done to the land here, because there's all just flat, clear paddocks, you know, with cows in. And they said, oh, no, it's really lovely, really lovely. I was like, well, what about the native bush? What about all the nature that we've destroyed in order to put these cows here, to abuse them? And it's just, yeah.
Exactly. That land, people forget, wasn't always cleared, wasn't always just monocropped, grass. There was forests, there was wildlife, there were birds. There's this disconnect, I think. People think that it was always like that.
Definitely. When the truth is, like you say, up until a couple of hundred years ago, New Zealand had just one land mammal. No, just one mammal, wasn't it? And it was a bat. There was, everything else was had fins or wings or, insects or whatever. So, it's like when you put it like that, it's really, quite sobering, isn't it? To think that we've done so much in 200 years. We're leading the way for a lot of the wrong reasons. But, thank you so much for coming to talk to us. I, wish you every success with this march and however many which follow, because I think you may have started something. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our followers?
I did think of one thing while you were talking about what Mike Joy was saying. I think one thing that would help people understand that it is factory farming is, when you look at the milk machines, the things that are kind of hidden from sight, the way it's also mechanized, you don't just have laborers milking cows, how we kind of envision it. It's all just machinery. So I think that can also, it's to do with propaganda, right? They're not going to show you those images in the dairy ads.
Very true.
I think
very clinical. Very
old McDonald must have sailed straight past New Zealand,
Yeah, like one of the things that I always come back to, especially when it comes to people's criticism of plant-based diet, for example, they're like, oh, that means more cropping. Monocropping is bad. But the main monocrop system that we have in New Zealand is ryegrass paddocks for our pasture systems. And people don't think about the harm that this has on ecosystems, the monocrop, the lack of diversity, and it's all for cows. And it's just, that's the thing in my mind that links it to factory farming, the environmental degradation through the need for this kind of capitalist monocrop system that is being pushed by industrial dairy in New Zealand.
Yeah.
That's so true. We could talk talk all day about, all of these industries, about the dairy industry alone. But for now, we will, we'd love to come back and talk to you guys further in the future. But for now, where can people go to support your activism from, both for the march or in general, wherever they are in the world?
Mm-hmm. So we have a Facebook page called Wellington Vegan Actions. We are part of the team that coordinates that group. And then if you want to become a volunteer and you're Wellington based or close to Wellington, we have a Wellington Vegan Actions volunteers page.
Yep, and we've got the Warm 2020 website for the Animal Rights March. And Samah and I both have our own pages on Facebook and Instagram. You can just search our name, Chris Huriwai, Samah Seger, and
Groovy.
Fantastic. We'll make sure they are put up there for our followers.
Up above the cow. But no, it's been fantastic talking to you guys, and so lovely to hear from our local activists. And I hope this has inspired some of our overseas activists of how they can get some events like these happening in their areas once it's become safe and sort of acceptable around them. But it's fantastic to get your insight on this, and I look forward to seeing who we can inspire with this.
Definitely. And keep in touch. We look forward to seeing how it all goes.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much for your work. Ngā mihi. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode. If you would like to support our speaker, then follow the links provided in the description. If you're enjoying this content, then please subscribe to our YouTube channel, leave a like on some of our videos, and drop some comments with the things that you've been learning from this series. We really appreciate all your love and support, and we can't wait to bring you the next episode. Thank you.